In this WrestleTalk news, Aleister Black debuts for AEW, Chris Jericho punches a fan, my review of last night's Dynamite, and this special message. Looking back on where we first met, I cannot escape and I cannot forget. Southgate, you're the one, you still turn me on. Football's coming home again. I don't even follow football. Let's talk about a real sport. Oily men fighting each other. Subscribe for daily wrestling news on that. And for football to come home.
Support WrestleTalk!
Last night's AEW Dynamite was the first show back on the road in front of live fans for over 16 months, and they had a huge surprise to kick off their tour, the huge WWE star defection, Brock Lesnar Fan Guy. This is a big signing. And also Aleister Black. After a fake out with the lights going in the show's Cody Rhodes vs QT Marshall strap match opener, which the commentators put down to a power outage caused by bad weather, a similar red herring tactic All In used before Chris Jericho made his shock appearance in 2018, the lights cut out again during an Arn Anderson promo later on, plunging the arena into black, to come up revealing Aleister Black, standing in the ring in a black suit, to hit a black mass on Arn and a black mass on Cody.
Very dark, almost black.
Johnny.
Black, yes, black. I shall need to get the black out.
Johnny.
Black.
Johnny.
Black. Black. Black for the sky and the sea. Black.
Black. Because ex-WWE stars can't debut in AEW unless it's directly in a feud with Cody Rhodes. JR called him by his pre-WWE name Tommy End, but then Excalibur said, this isn't anything like that, Tommy. It's a possessed style character called Malachi Black.
Black.
This follows on from the high-production 5-minute short film The Devil Made Me Do It Tommy End had posted on his Instagram earlier that day, aka doing a Moxley, with the quote, I often wondered how many more there were, like in my head. Those voices, I don't know which I prefer, the endless silence or the constant dialogue. I find them both equally frightening. Hey, Black, that's Randy Orton's gimmick. The short film itself shows him having been locked up in an institution for 5 years, coincidentally the same amount of time he was with WWE, where he refuses treatment, seemingly becomes possessed, and murders both his doctors and smothers their blood over his face. Geez, Tommy, you're not with the PG company anymore, let loose a little. But Black was only released by WWE 35 days ago, which should mean he can't show up for other promotions until his main roster 90-day non-compete clause has expired. Well, it turns out WWE screwed up. According to PW Insider, a clerical error on WWE's part is how Black was able to show up so quickly, as when he was moved from NXT to the main roster back in 2019, they simply forgot to update his contract. So he still had the 30-day non-compete clause that NXT talent have. Couldn't have happened to a nicer company. Fightful Select had reported earlier in the day that talent backstage in AEW was speculating End would be debuting that night, with rumors spreading he was in Miami. The report notes that multiple people that have been released in the past couple of months have gained and been granted early releases from those clauses, including one name who will be popping up for other companies in the next few weeks, which you'd assume would be Impact's Slammiversary show next Saturday. It had been reported though that many in WWE thought Black's release was a mistake, and some were pushing for him to be re-signed, just like how Samoa Joe came back to NXT last month. Of course, his real-life wife Zelina Vega returned to the company on Friday's SmackDown 2. What did you think of Black's debut? Let me know in the comments down below because I'll be replying to as many people as I can for the first 30 minutes after this video goes live.
Black.
From out of nowhere. Thanks for your support on Patreon. No one names their kid this anymore. Larry and Chris the Cypriot Sensation Patro. You can get your own shout out by joining us over at patreon.com/WrestleTalk. Black's debut wasn't the only shocking thing to happen on Road Rager though, as AEW didn't just let fans in the crowd, they nearly let them in the ring too. During the MJF and Chris Jericho segment, one fan got a little rowdy while Judas was playing for Jericho's entrance and tried to get on stage. Security and Justin Roberts restrained him while Jericho seemingly got a stiff punch to the fan's face before the segment continued. It's Judas effective. The fan was then seen being dragged out on the floor. Meanwhile, over in WWE, Raw just recorded its lowest viewership ever. This week's episode drew a reported 1.47 million viewers according to Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics. But now it's Thursday, you know what that means. My review of last night's AEW Road Rager in about 5 minutes. Dynamite's big comeback tour in front of fans started off with Cody Rhodes immediately shaking fans' hands at ringside. Screw you, COVID, we've definitely solved it. And then Dustin Rhodes brawled into the crowd with the Nightmare Factory. Yep, pandemic definitely isn't a thing anymore. In an experiment to see if the current Cody backlash isn't just online, he wrestled QT Marshall, who didn't even get an entrance, in the presumed blow-off to their feud in a strap match. It was well worked and the crowd were into certain spots, but Cody's definitely not as hot as he used to be, winning with a paltry 3 Crossroads. Don Callis and Kenny Omega then came out for an in-ring interview with Tony Schiavone to say there's no one left to beat. Evil Uno of the Dark Order begged to differ, but still nobody actually mentioned Paige by name, letting the crowd organically chant, "We want Hangman." That is the mark of a perfectly executed story right there. A quick Elite versus Dark Order brawl followed, which brought down Paige to clear house. Clotheslining Gallows over the top rope so he ended up outside, he hopped onto the apron, and then all of a sudden, there we were again. Revolution 2020, over a year ago, where Hangman found himself in the buckshot lariat position on Omega. It resonated with the crowd before they even got a chance to consciously realize it, letting loose one of those spontaneous, cathartic pops of excitement. But Paige just stepped through the ropes and had a face-off, and Kenny ran away. This was an awesome show, and this was my favorite thing on it. JR conducted a sit-down interview with Ethan Page and Darby Allin, where both guys were pretty civil about wanting to end each other's careers in next week's coffin match. Coffin! The Inner Circle versus Pinnacle feud had its latest chapter with Wardlow and FTR beating Jake Hager, Santana and Ortiz. Hager and Wardlow continued to be big slabs of sexy meat, and Tully Blanchard took out Conan with a chop block afterwards, which, to be fair, Conan had just tried attempted murder on Wardlow by whacking him in the base of the skull with a pool ball and a sock. Carl Anderson set up an IWGP United States title match against Jon Moxley for next week, wanting to bring the championship back home to the Elite. Another reason we've all missed crowds, Jericho's entrance getting lip-synced right into my soul by this guy. From now on, he should do Jericho's entrance like Scarlett Bordeaux sings for Karrion Kross. MJF and Jericho had a fun back and forth promo where MJF set up the labors of Jericho to get a third match with him. Chris must first beat 4 opponents in stipulations of MJF's choosing, inverting how Jericho forced Moxley to beat all the Inner Circle ahead of their title match last year. But here's my pitch. It's not the Pinnacle. That's too obvious. Chris Jericho has to face the Inner Circle. They've got that rogue's code of honor where they wouldn't just lay down for each other. Jericho can ask each one to give it their all, and he has to beat his own faction to get a final go at MJF. Jericho laid him out at the end with a Judas elbow. It's Judas effective. Andrade made his in-ring debut in a solid match against Matt Sydal, but just like Miro's initial run in the company, he's not reaching the fans' understandably high expectations. And everything went
black.
There was a recap from before the show started of Ricky Starks seemingly splitting with Team Taz, as opposed to Brian Cage. A heel turn on the heels. We'll see what happens in their match next week. Orange Cassidy and Chris Statlander beat the Bunny and the Blade in a fun intergender tag. That is all the women you will get on this show. The famed MMA gym, America's Top Team, was represented in the crowd by Dan Lambert, Amanda Nunes, and Jorge Masvidal, where Lambert then cut an excellent heel cornet promo on the crowd and about how crap wrestling is these days. Hasn't been good since my day in the 80s and the 70s. Lance Archer then came out and hit a blackout on him.
I'm flying.
This is likely just a one-off spot because they were in town, but Lambert is fantastic as we know from his work in Impact. I would not mind if they stuck around. And the main event saw the Bucks debut yet another new look, dressed up in denim hot pants and do-rags with sadly no moustaches, for a tag team title street fight against Penta and Eddie Kingston. This was the exact right amount of chaotic fun, with sentons on trash cans, Canadian destroyers through tables, loads of interference, and thumbtacks. The best spot though was when Kingston had Matt in a choke, so Nick goes to the top rope to break it up, but just like their leader Kenny did with Pac and Cassidy at Double or Nothing, you can't assume Kingston will let go even if you hit him. So Nick took out the referee with a 450 splash instead. There were plenty of visible pins for the babyfaces, and it worked so well, I genuinely wanted them to win, even though I think it's too early for the Bucks to lose. That is so rare for me to experience, when my wrestling heart drowns out my wrestling head. But the Bucks won in the end, filling Kingston's mouth with tacks and then super kicking him. What did you think of Dynamite? Let me know in the comments and vote in our poll on a poll match on our community tab, where 90% of you went for Aleister Black. Tommy ended up in AEW. See what I did there? This was an incredible show, a great main event, the shocking Black debut, and that Page versus Omega moment. How could it be anything other than 5 out of 5? Make WrestleTalk.com your homepage for all the latest news on Black and WWE, and watch this video to find out Jimmy Uso's arrest status. WrestleVotes have tweeted, "I've spoken to 2 sources this morning on the Jimmy Uso news. I can say with certainty that a few high-level people in power are extremely disappointed and legitimately pissed off over the arrest. This many times isn't a mistake or bad luck, it's personal judgment. Not good."